We're turning it into a podcast. But right now we're live on YouTube. 3, 2, 1. Has Micah Parsons already won Defensive Rookie of the Year? And what are the Cowboys doing to help him do that? Matt Schauf here with me on the IDP Blitz for Week 11. Micah Parsons in the wake of the Randy Gregory injury. What should we look for from this insta-stud?
Well, that's what I was wondering heading into last week's game, because Randy Gregory went down, of course, with the practice injury a week before. And we saw Dallas deal with defensive end injuries early in the season by switching Micah Parsons to defensive end. So I was wondering if we were going to at least get more Micah Parsons on the edge, because he did it well, did it so well that he's continued to play some snaps in that area. The answer is no. They like him at linebacker. Like I said, he has continued to play some edge snaps, but that number did not grow last week, despite no Randy Gregory, despite DeMarcus Lawrence still being out. They just went with 70% plus playing time for both Terrell Basham and Dorrance Armstrong. Good game for Dorrance Armstrong. It was a great matchup against Atlanta. That's not going to continue. They got the Chiefs and Raiders the next two, but Micah Parsons stayed in his usual role, and Leighton Vander Esch, who if we had more Parsons on the edge, there would have been upside for Leighton Vander Esch playing time at linebacker. Instead, he followed a 12-tackle game with a spike in playing time the week before by playing his fewest snaps last week since week 1. So no upside for him there. No change for Micah Parsons. We're just going to keep going forward with him doing the things he's been doing.
And is there even anybody else in the picture? I mean, can we cash in our Micah Parsons Defensive Rookie of the Year tickets at this point?
You might as well. I think the only question is, does anybody score 2 random touchdowns between now and the end of the season, like Jeremy Chin did last year against the Vikings? Because that's the kind of thing that always grabs voters' attention.
Right. Micah Parsons getting a lot of attention. Some attention elsewhere at the defensive end position in the NFC East. We already had Montez Sweat. I guess he's probably drinking a lot of smoothies. And Chase Young, at the very least, is going to have recovery from ACL surgery. We're not going to see him for a while. So what does this position look like for the football team going forward?
Imagine going from trash talking defensive end in the NFL to having your jaw wired shut. That's got to be a rude awakening. But there's a lot of online gaming there. So Chase Young tore his ACL last week, follows Montez Sweat out of the lineup. So we already had a game of no Montez Sweat. He's on IR, so we know he's going to miss at least 2 more. That leaves James Smith-Williams and Casey Toohill as the starters at defensive end, barring some kind of addition, but I haven't seen anything since then. And I think the whole thing is kind of helping me see that Washington clearly has a type at defensive end, and I probably should have noticed it before, but James Smith-Williams is probably not going to be anybody that most people know, but he was the speed score leader in the 2020 edge class. Maybe Chase Young not working out helped James Smith-Williams lead that category, but the fact remains that he's a speed freak. And you also might know him as the player who, I think it was Lance Zierlein shared that photo, progression of him through college, where he arrived in college at 180 pounds and he left at 280 and just progressively grew through there. But anyway, James Smith-Williams is a speed score winner. Casey Toohill is also a speed score winner, 88th percentile speed score for his position. He was a 7th round pick of Philly in 2020. Shaka Toney is a rookie this year. He was the 5th best speed score guy in the edge class in this year's class, also strong in the 3-cone drill. So a good athlete, limited college production. So, all told, there's nothing to grab onto at defensive end. The one thing helping these guys, besides the fact that they're fast, is the Carolina matchup this week offers some sneaky upside. So if you're in a deep league where you're in a position thinking, oh no, what do I do with nobody on the wire and Chase Young gone? You could take a shot on James Smith-Williams and see if he steals something against Carolina this week.
The real answer is check for Kenny Willekes, right?
If he's back from the COVID list.
Yeah, all roads lead back to Kenny Willekes. Some roads might lead to slot cornerbacks, a position maybe underappreciated. I know one of my favorites, now not in my favorite team's uniform, Mike Hilton, he certainly showed us what slot cornerbacks can do in IDP leagues. Give us a tour around this position right now, some players who might be able to help us in those leagues where you have to start 2 cornerbacks.
Yeah, this could be a tricky position. And if you have a cornerback who gives you production 1 week and then the next week he plays 45% of the snaps, chances are that's where he plays, because these guys can see their playing time vary quite a bit depending on matchup. So a couple of guys who have really stepped up lately in their exposure is Rudy Ford for Jacksonville and Ugo Amadi for Seattle, who kind of pops in and out. And he's easy to notice because that name is just fun to say. If you hear somebody say Ugo Amadi, you're going to remember that that's a person. Rudy Ford, though, over the past 3 games, taken over the slot for Jacksonville, had a big outing against the Bills and Cole Beasley. Not a great matchup this week against the 49ers. On the other side of that, though, he has the Falcons and Rams, so there should be more opportunities in those 2 games. So keep an eye on Rudy Ford, for a secondary that's been looking for answers all year. Ugo Amadi has seen his playing time increase the past 2 games. Faced the Jaguars, faced the Packers, had 9 and 7 tackles in those games. He's got a positive matchup for opportunity this week with Arizona. And then just some other guys to keep in mind and look at their matchups coming up. Mike Hilton, who you mentioned for the Bengals now, gets Vegas this week. So that should mean plenty of Hunter Renfrow, probably some Darren Waller in coverage as well. Nate Hobbs on the other side of that is the Raiders' primary slot guy. So he gets Tyler Boyd with the Bengals. Michael Carter for the Jets, who I thought had an injury last week, but I haven't seen anything since then about it. So I guess we'll keep an eye out and make sure he's good. But he gets Miami this week, Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki. And then Jordan Lewis is the last guy I have down for the Cowboys, who's playing time, up and down, but this week gets the Chiefs, who, challenge a defense just about as much as any could in the slot.
And if Josh Allen caused the glitches in the Matrix in week 9, what's going to happen if you try to start both Jets Michael Carters in your lineup? I don't know what the football matrix might do with that. I know that whether it's a glitch in the matrix or not, we have had a problem pinning down really any Rams linebacker for value. Well, hey, if they're trailing and facing, how many carries was it for the 49ers running backs on Monday night? A lot. There can be value there, but can we figure out where the value will manifest?
Yeah, by the way, if you play both Michael Carters in a lineup, don't do it in a week where Darius Slay faces Darius Slayton. For the Rams linebackers, so it's the annoying part is that we can't just ignore it because the guys are putting up numbers at times. We just don't know who's going to be on the field more in a given week. It was John Macri from Pro Football Focus who pointed out on Twitter Monday that since week 4, we have not seen the same guy lead the Rams off-ball linebacker group in snaps in consecutive games. And by off-ball, I mean the non-edge guys, the stand-up linebackers who are collecting tackles and in coverage. Week 8 was the Ernest Jones breakout. We thought, all right, cool, we got this guy going forward. Troy Reeder ahead of him the next week. Then this past week, it was Jones edging Troy Reeder in playing time again, but Troy Reeder won the stat battle. So, the question coming out of that is which one going forward? The answer is both to some degree, but we can't trust either one because it's not clear whether the Rams prefer either guy in a specific role. I don't know. I maybe somebody who is more of a tape watcher than I am can see what the difference is for matchups and figure out when they're going to play who. I think you just have to, consider both of them potentially usable in a moderately deep league and not overly trust either one. And if you're in a shallower league where you're playing like 3 to 5 defensive players total, it's just a situation to avoid, even though there are going to be weeks where there's like big numbers from Troy Reeder or big numbers from Ernest Jones. Try to ignore those and play somebody that you can rely on staying on the field more.
And with the Rams on a bye this week, it's easy. Just drop your Rams linebackers, use the spot for somebody else. Maybe some players we're going to discuss as we try to pin down some other revolving door type situations. I've really enjoyed getting fantasy production from Alex Singleton until recently. Is there another linebacker in Philadelphia we might want to pick up?
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see folks asking about Alex Singleton still this week, but he's been out of the starting lineup for about 3 games now. And that's how long TJ Edwards has been in his spot. Took over for that Detroit game, played 66% of the snaps, I think, in that one because most starters came out of that game for the fourth quarter. But since then, TJ Edwards has started each of the past 2 games as well and been over 90% playing time in each of those games. So it looks like TJ Edwards is the guy. We'll see if something changes, but Alex Singleton has had his shot over 2 seasons with 2 different coaching staffs. It's clear he's just not good enough to stay on the field. He's good enough to collect a bunch of tackles when he gets on there, but not good enough to keep that spot. But TJ Edwards looks like a reliable starter for tackle-friendly scoring leagues.
when we look at the Chargers linebackers and we're looking for reliable, the safety linebacker tweeners made some big plays this year. Kyzir White, is he someone we can count on?
We've come to not trust Chargers linebackers through the past few years. This is a different coaching staff than the previous few. So maybe it's different here. And Kyzir White has at least lately turned into a guy that's reliable, staying on the field. He's played over 80% of the snaps in 4 straight games. He's had 8+ tackles in each of those games. He did so with Drew Tranquill in the lineup. Tranquill was out of the lineup last week on the COVID list. Kenneth Murray came off of IR last week from his ankle injury to return and trailed Kyzir White in playing time. Of course, before Murray had the injury, his playing time got cut down because he wasn't playing very well. So, I don't want to say for sure Kyzir White is the top guy going forward, but certainly for now, it looks as though he is. And I don't see why the Chargers would swing, big time in another direction right now.
Let's go to Tennessee, where depending on what week you're checking in, there's been a different most valuable off-ball linebacker. It was David Long for a little while. We saw them draft Monty Rice. We wondered if he was going to get in the picture. Of course, there's former first-round pick Rashaan Evans, who probably is in his last year with the team. And we come to Jayon Brown, who has always been productive when healthy. Is it coming back around that Brown is what we want at the linebacker position in Tennessee?
It looks like it, and I would like to think so. He, of course, played his usual 93% back in week 1, but then was dealing with multiple injuries since then. It was tough to read because there were some games where he played, but played on a limited basis, was dealing with injuries, was trying to play through them, then was on IR. So we finally got 100% playing time from Jayon Brown this past week. That was up from 70% in his return game from IR. The problem is both David Long and Rashaan Evans were out for that game. So how do they all fit together? We don't know because Evans has been out for 2 games now. Long, of course, missed last week. We'll have to see what the status is for Long and Evans this week, and then probably wait and see how everything fits together. I would like to think that it's David Long and Jayon Brown in the lineup together once they're all healthy, because Evans has done nothing but disappoint versus his first-round draft status. But we'll have to see, because Long, of course, stepped in for Jayon Brown's spot. They did play together 2 weeks ago before Long got his injury against the Rams. So, maybe they both fit together in the lineup, and that would be my guess if I had to pick right now. Jayon Brown should be the first guy on the field, the guy staying in more than David Long, but, it matters a lot more what the Titans coaches think than what I think, what any of us thinks, and what, PFF grades say about the players. But Jayon Brown looks like a solid bet going forward.
And what's your guess with the Browns linebackers now that rookie sensation before injury, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, is back on the field, but should he be back in our lineups?
Yeah, I mean, my guess is that he ultimately climbs there. He was not there in his first game back. He was 4th among Browns linebackers in playing time. He was coming off an ankle injury, was questionable entering the game. I thought that was kind of silly because why bring him off IR if he's not going to play? But he did played limited snaps. We talked before about JOK was limited in the summer, and yet he still climbed to the top of the linebacking core in playing time before suffering that high ankle sprain. So now that he's back, I would imagine that he advances back to that spot. I don't think Anthony Walker gets completely pushed aside, so I would go ahead and play Anthony Walker for now and see where things go and see how long it takes Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah to climb back to the top. But, deep enough leagues, I think stash him for now, and I think don't believe in any Browns linebacker beyond JOK and Anthony Walker at the moment.
He's the kind of player that, against the coach's worst intentions, will just play himself into more playing time. And good things will come to those who wait, but we might have to wait. You don't have to wait any longer for this week's IDP Blitz, and otherwise all the great IDP coverage at footballguys.com. John Norton, the guru, Eyes the Guru, and everybody else. And of course, check out everything that Matt is doing over at Draft Sharks. Follow him at SCHAUFDS. Are you going to change the handle to Matty Sheep?
Never.
Yeah, no, that's good, folks. We really love bringing you IDP content because it is the best form of fantasy football, and it gets you to have a richer experience of the game. We have a richer experience of life because we get to serve you as fantasy football experts. As always, you're the best to serve because you're so classy.